Great. Okay, so it's been 5 minutes. What do you think, Prashant? Shall we start?
Yeah, we can start.
Okay, amazing. So, of course, the floor is yours. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, those who are joining us from India and early morning or morning in Europe. My name is Prashant Ajmera. I'm a lawyer by profession, specialized into the residency and citizenship by investments, or you can say global mobilities and cross-border law. Since last 33 years, I have been assisting individuals, small and medium-sized enterprise, and the startup founders to expand their business beyond the borders, beyond their home country. I'm a Canadian citizen, and uh, right now I'm based in Ahmedabad, India. And we are starting this new series, particularly related to the India Europe Gateway. Why this series? Because it has come at the very right point, because India and Europe has signed an European free trade agreement. And that's why the interest amongst the Indian HNIs, startups, and SMEs has increased. So we thought that there cannot be a better time to have this series of webinar where we are doing the 4 series of webinars, and this is our third. In the first one, we give a general view about it. The second webinar was about that how we help or we can help the Indian multinational who wants to enter into European market. So today is our third webinar where we're going to talk about the how the Indian startups can enter into European market and how we can help. And for that, we have Louis joining us from Portugal in Lisbon.
Yeah.
And he is the head of and CFO or department at the Dealflow.eu. Dealflow.eu is a European company backed by the European Commissions, where they have a large ecosystem of more than 24,000 startups, and they have helped number of startups to become a unicorn. He's also he's a manager of Expatico, supporting the startup relocating to the Portugals and helping them match them with the right talent, which is very, very important to have a right talent for the startup. He has a 6 years of an experience in financial industry and the investment industry. He holds the CFA 2 holders and graduates in law and finance by IE University. So he has worked with all these top companies in the world. Right now, he's working with the Dealflow.eu and head of the CFO. So, Louis, floor is yours.
Thank you
Please
so much.
tell us more about it, how you are helping the startup in Europe.
Thank you very much, Prashant, and hello everyone, and great to be here with you today. Already Prashant gave a brief introduction on what Dealflow is, but let me also make a quick recap on my end. Actually, when I joined Dealflow, I was not very sure how it worked, so this slide helps me a lot. I think that Dealflow sits at the center of Europe's innovation ecosystem, and we connect three different groups. Those corporates that are looking to innovate, those startups that are looking to scale, and actually the investors that are looking for deal flow. And that's actually where the name deal flow comes from. We were very original when thinking of the name. For corporates, we run more than 30 events per year. And actually, out of each of these events, we facilitate on average 3 pilot projects. For startups, we support a lot of them. Actually, I think in the past, the full team, we've supported more than 500, which is actually a lot. And on average, we've secured 2.9 million in public and private funding. Which is a lot. In total, out of all the companies we've supported, we've facilitated more than 230 deals, which is a huge success rate, of which we are very, very proud. And for investors, now I will show you a bit more in depth, but we have a very large network and we provide more than 500 direct introductions per year. But I have to show off a bit, no? As head of the CFO department at Dealflow, I want to show you a bit what we've built across the years, because it's been quite a journey. Um, for those that just joined and want to enter Europe, Europe is a highly fragmented market. So it's not the
Uh-huh.
same if you are in Spain and you want to enter France or the Netherlands. It's not as easy because it's the same continent. No, it's highly fragmented. And we are in a very unique position. Our European position has allowed us to create an investor network that is cross borders, that it goes to absolutely every country. On average, we make more than 30, no, around 30 introductions per month, which is one per day between startups and investors. And I can assure you that maintaining that in the long run is quite a feat, and we're quite proud of that. Um, but I think there's something that is very important we need to mention, that maintaining the relationships with investors is very hard. It requires constant deal flow. It requires us to be constantly connected with the latest startups, the latest innovations. When we meet with investors, this normally happens in quarterly meetings, in quarterly calls or semi-annual calls, and they expect us to show them the latest startup, the latest innovation, something that's new, something they would like to invest in. So for us, this new India and Europe trade deal is so important because it allows us to connect with a lot of innovations from India. So for us, it's really good that you're here today. We want to meet all of you, and hopefully you want to come to Europe. And I'm able to convince you today to enter the European market, in particularly through Portugal. But before we do this, actually, before we start talking about funding, about visas, about how to talk to an investor, I think there's something we have to talk about today, which is the culture clash. Because you can have the best product in the world, the right visa, and you can have the money. But if you struggle in the human connection, you might have some problems in the closing the contracts or raising the funds. So I actually spoke to some Indian friends that I had, and we managed to gather these. And actually, I would love to hear also from the audience if you agree or not, but this is what we managed to collect. So the first one is actually on the relationship processes. And actually, before I go into this one, as I mentioned before, Europe is highly fragmented. So what works in a country might not work in the other one. This is why coming with a local partner is always essential. So, but starting with the first one, for example, relationship versus process. It's my understanding that in India, business run a lot on personal trust. But depending, if you go to Northern Europe, for example, Germany, the Nordics, the Netherlands, that might not be the case that much. You have to follow a formal process, and contracts come first. In Southern Europe, I think it would be much more similar to India, where relationships matter a lot. But I think the common denominator here is that a warm introduction always opens doors. If you start doing cold outreach, either if you are in India or in Europe, you might get ignored. The second one is slower decisions, which is very tightly connected to regulatory modes. So get ready for slow processes, especially in corporates and public institutions. We tend to involve a lot of stakeholders, and we tend to have a lot of formal review steps. It might be the case that something feels to you of disinterest or that you're being ignored, but it's really not. It's simply that we're following our very structured process. If you go to Germany, you would be amazed on how slow it is. I think that setting up a company, a legal entity in Germany, can take you up to 6 months. That's the level of how slow things can be. In Europe, and even more in startups, we tend to have flatter teams. It's my understanding that in India you might be a bit more hierarchical, but in Europe it could be the case that it could be more flatter. And it might be the case that a founder may tell a junior team member to do something, and of course the junior team member has to do it, don't get me wrong. But it might be the case that that decision gets challenged. Of course, the last word is on the founder side, but it's also good to have this view. Next one, the data over the vision. I think here is a good comparison against the US market, for example. Here we tend to be more conservative than US VCs, and we want to see unit economics. We want to see validated traction and projections. So we can get excited with the story you're going to tell us, but we need to see the numbers. If not, we will hardly believe you. Something that actually I was talking with Prashant is that in Europe, in particularly in the Northern Europe, the work-life balance is real. So do not send a message to a person from Finland after 9 p.m. That might that might not be seen positively. Of course, it depends. No, it's not good to generalize a country, but I work with Northern Europe colleagues, and at least in my case, this is the case.
Uh-huh.
And lastly, the other one I want to talk about, as mentioned before, is the regulatory modes. So Europe is heavily regulated, but once you pass all the screenings, I think it's quite predictable. So we have a lot. We have GDPR, we have CE
Yeah, I can say it.
marking, we have lots of things. But I think it's good to be aware that we are heavily regulatory. And the jewel of the crown that I don't know if it's been previously mentioned, but I really have to, it's the financing that we provide at at a government level, both at a national level and supranational. I will walk you through this later, but the EU provides billions and billions and billions of capital to startups, which is a huge incentive to come to Europe. So, if I could summarize in 4 steps, what are European investors and corporates looking for? I think it's very summarized, and this could apply, of course, to an investor in India, but I think it's a good way to put it. Please validate the traction and realistic financials. Don't give me a hockey stick. Give me real numbers. Give me real customers. If you have ARR, give it to me. If you have pilots, give me the names. If you know someone in a corporate, give me the name. If you are entering a country and you know the name of an investor you previously talked to, tell me the name because it's gonna create me this FOMO, this fear of missing out. So connections. Tell me about connections. I think I'm a bit biased because I'm Southern European, so it's a bit the case, but very important. Another one, and I see this not only when someone enters the EU market, but also for European startups when they enter another country. They have a clear market entry strategy. Don't just say, we want to expand to Europe. We want to expand to Portugal. That's not a strategy. How are you going to do it? Which country, which customer segment, which use case, why now, with whom, how are you going to do it?
Mhm.
Another one also is the regulatory awareness. Is hey, I really like when someone that is coming to Portugal is aware of the regulations in Portugal, or is aware of the grants in Portugal, or is aware of the latest news or parliament passings that were happening, because it tells me that you are up to date and you know the regulatory landscape. That is super important. Last one, a European anchor or a European partner, as mentioned before, extremely important. We have so many barriers in many cases. We have language barriers, cultural barriers, administrative barriers. So entering a market with a local partner is key. And honestly, I think this is applicable to absolutely any new market entry. I think I've never heard someone I can enter a new market with a different language and I can do it on my own. But it's important to know. So then the other side of the coin is the typical mistakes. I just put Indians because it's today's target audience, but I can tell you I see this every day with European startups. If you have vague Europe plans, if you don't know how you're going to enter, also, if you overestimate the India traction or your home country traction, this happens a lot because it's nice to see, but what worked in India, in this case, may not automatically transfer. Another country, Europe may have different dynamics, may have different customer expectations, pricing. It may be super different. So be honest about what you need to revalidate in the European context. Underestimating compliance is exactly what I said before. Hey, know your law, know your regulations, know where you're entering. It's super nice. And actually do it with a partner. The other one is rushing the partnerships, and this is, I think, more towards Northern Europe countries. Sometimes when you move too fast, it may be seen that you're pushing too much before the relationship is established, and it may kill deals. What we advise here is, of course, to build the relationship little by little. Let's say also a bit out of the work context, because that always helps. And lastly, and as mentioned before, and I will be coming back here in a second, is ignoring the EU funding. Guys, there is a lot of money on the table and a lot of non-dilutive funding, which is money that you don't have to give back. It's not going to take equity from your cap table. So it's a no-brainer. So now that we know what investors look for, the common mistakes is, hey, what is our recommendation on how to position? Easy. And I think this is also applicable to everyone. Lead with the problem and the market size. I think this is classic for any startup. But show the local understanding. Show exactly how you're going to enter your go-to-market strategy. Reference local case studies, pilots, people you know, super important. The third one, and obviously is super, I mean, it's basic and essential. You need to have a European legal entity or a clear path to set it up. This is the best signal of seriousness. We see this a lot in Portugal when we have a client, a startup or a potential client that wants to meet a particular investor from Portugal, and they ask Dealflow for a warm introduction. And we always make the introduction, of course, if we like them. But when they get into the call, of course, they show the product, the problem, the market, how is it going, and then they ask about, okay, and how is your plan on coming to Portugal? How advanced it is? Do you have an entity? And then they say,
Mhm.
no. Okay, when are you gonna do it? Everything is thinner. And then you can see that the deal is not materializing because the investor is not taking you seriously. Because you're saying, yeah, I'm gonna do this, this, and that. Okay, but have you done it? Or what are your plans to do it? Super important. So that's why to do this, we encourage to use local partners. In this case, if you're coming to Portugal, Dealflow could help you with the full setup process. Now let's go into something that I love to talk about, which is the EU funding. And this is, I would say, the part that most Indian founders do not know much about, which is the EU funding. So the European Union runs the world's largest non-dilutive funding program for innovative startups. So it's not like VC, we're not taking your equity. It's not like loans, you don't have to repay. This is for deep tech startups and it's a sunk fund. And this is the key point. In order to access this money, so if you're coming to Europe, you can access the market, you can access the corporates, you can access the clients. But also, if you want to access this money, you need to have a European entity. And in our particular case, we recommend the Portuguese entity also because all the huge national level advantages Portugal offers. I'm gonna mention three of my favorite, but I can tell you it's the landscape of grants. It's played. There's so many of them, but I would say
Mhm.
the HC Accelerator is the one that I know the most and is the most recognized in Europe. It offers you up to 2.5 million in grant, as I mentioned, non-dilutive and money for the pocket that doesn't need to be repaid, and also up to 10 million in equity investment. So it doesn't only give you free money, but then it also gives you the recognition of having the EU in the cap table. I think that the only downside of this program is that it's super demanding. The success rate is quite low because the best of the best of the best in Europe apply. Then I'm gonna go to this one, which is Eurostars, which is, I would say, also an R&D focused grant. It's a bit simpler and the size of the grant is smaller, still it's €500,000, which is a lot, but it has a way higher success rate. So this is normally given for consortiums with startups and universities, science labs, and it has a relatively high success rate. That's why I like it a lot. I think it has around 30%. So one out of every three startups get it. And then the last one, which is Horizon Europe, is basically, I would say, the big tree that englobes all I'm showing you. For example, EIC Accelerator and Eurostars are englobed within Horizon Europe. But just to give you a number on the sheer size of the program, the EU in total is giving out 95 billion euros to research and innovation programs. It gives money to many, let's say, organizations, from startups to universities to corporates. If you're in deep tech, you can be hardware, biotech, climate. This is where the serious money comes from. So let me go to the next slide. Of course, I've been bombing you with a lot of information. I've been telling you, hey, come to Portugal, we can connect you to startups, you can meet a lot of corporates, you can access a lot of money. How can we help you? As mentioned before, Dealflow is a full service ecosystem partner. We cover from end to end. We are like in Spanish we say key delivery. We do all the work and we deliver until the end. Um, we can help with the EU funding. We handle all the grant application processes, eligibility assessment, and everything related to non-dilutive funding. We also do a lot of fundraising advisory. As mentioned, in our team, we have previous founders, we have the venture capitalists, operators. So we cover, I would say, the full spectrum of expertise when fundraising. We can help you with investor readiness materials, refining your pitch deck, making the warm introduction, either to venture capitalists, family offices, angel networks, corporate VCs. So this is something actually we excel a lot in. Also, in our previous webinar, and I hope you attended, you were so lucky to meet Vittorio, which is in charge of doing the corporate innovation. We run a matchmaking platform where startups apply to open innovation challenges from other European corporates. So imagine Tetra Pak is looking for a new technology to improve the packaging of the boxes they make. Then they contact us and they say, hey, Dealflow, please look for sustainable materials for packaging. So we scout and we make events where we connect you directly with the corporates. And this is actually something that Vittorio is really succeeding in doing. We are doing, as I mentioned, we did 30 events in the last 2 years. So we do more than 16 per year. We're doing with Tech Barbecue, Tech Tour, the Mobile World Congress, connecting startup with potential corporates. And lastly, if this was not enough, we can also invest in you ourselves. We have our own 30 million deep tech fund where we invest tickets between 200K and 2 million from pre-seed to Series A. I would say that our sweet spot is in seed, but we focus on deep tech, AI, climate tech, energy, manufacturing, mobility, but deep tech in general. So I think this is how I like to define ourselves. We are one ecosystem. We fund, we are investors, we give you corporate access, and we give you full relocation support. We are not just making you the intro, we're taking you with the hand through all the administrative hassles of coming to Europe.
Very good.
So, what's next? Right now, you're currently attending webinar 3, the Startup Playbook, which is about startups and how to enter Europe. But if you were here before and you were here last week, you also attended the Corporate Innovation Startup Scouting, and we highly recommend that you join our next webinar next week, where you will be lucky enough to talk with Fernando Ferreira, the general partner of Ventures.eu, our fund, and know more about how we can invest in you, and also if you want to access European deal flow and you can get access to really attractive tax incentive regimes, I really encourage you to join. So this being said, I would like to thank you all for your time. And of course, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us.
Thank you, Luis. That was an excellent presentation, and I think that particular two slides which you talked about is crux of not only startup but any cross-border business you want to do it. Whether it's an import exports or whether you want to set up a joint ventures or a technology transfers or a startup, because the knowing the local cultures, local law, and the peoples and all those things are very very important to do it. Like right now, what we are doing is as well that you are such a huge company, but you wanted to enter or attract the Indian startups and investors and the multinationals. We are working together because you know that means this can open the doors for you to local market in India. So coming to the couple of questions I want to ask you is about where you mentioned about this. One thing is about the huge fund what is available for these startups if you are a European startup or a European entity.
Mhm.
Uh, but do you also use the kind of this startup visa program of Portugal or any other European countries? Or you, as a startup founders, you don't have to relocate to it, or how does that work?
So, as a startup founder, you have to relocate to Europe.
Okay,
This is actually, I would say, one of the very few requirements that you have to do. Yeah.
right,
I think you can relocate to access EU level funding.
right.
Any EU country works. You can access the same money if you are in the Netherlands, in Portugal, or in Finland. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
But the key requirement is to have a European subsidiary or a European mother company. It depends if you fully relocate or you set up a subsidiary.
And like one of the founders will probably relocate, right? Not all of them, but like one of the
Yeah,
founders.
absolutely. No need for the full team to relocate. In fact, not even needed. I mean, if you are able to set up a serious team in EU, you don't need to fully relocate at all. Actually, not. It's not a hard requirement. No, no, no.
No, no, but at least your company is there and you are hiring the local peoples or European people. So, say for example, if I come to Portugal and we set up a Portuguese companies, we taken all the license and permits, what we need, we open up a bank account in the name of the companies, and then probably you help us to identify the talents, what you
Of
mentioned,
course,
32%.
of course.
Then we might send, as a startup founders, I'm talking, we might send a one person or a two key persons to Portugal to look at it, but
Mhm.
otherwise we don't need to do it. But my company should be,
Indeed.
yeah, it's a EU company. It should be with the
In
registered
fact,
license and
actually,
permits.
thank you for bringing that up. Actually, that is about our startup that actually I haven't mentioned a lot today, but is mentioned here, which is Expatico. Actually,
Okay.
we saw this need around a year ago because we saw many companies moving to Portugal because Portugal offers insane tax regimes for the individuals. And it also offers a really nice culture, lower salaries in comparison to the EU average. So we saw a lot of companies and founders relocating. But then maybe you are a Swedish founder and you want to find a Portuguese tech person. It's not that easy to find. So that's why we created Expatico, where we created a matchmaking
Mhm.
platform where you can list your company or yourself as an individual and connect with your counterpart that is looking for talent or a company to work in.
Yeah, I saw that link. You put it on the last, I think, slides where the contact
So,
details are there. That's also you put it
see, that
explained.
is also a very nice one, actually. True. It's a very nice one. Here it is actually. Thank you so much. I didn't remember this one. But yeah, actually,
Good.
this one has proven to be quite successful in the sense of it's generating a lot of interest because of the amount of companies that are moving to Portugal.
Right. So that's like a basically matchmaking kind of a thing
Exactly.
for the talent.
For the talent, exactly. For talent with startups and vice versa, and also for senior advisors, because we also
Oh,
see. Hmm.
okay. Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
advisory board for the startup.
yeah.
And when you take up this startup, like my next question is that like say for example, I'm coming there, I'm a startup founders and I'm coming to Portugal's. Probably I use these startup visa programs. I've been accepted, my company is registered and everything. Then if I come there, then how does my process work with you guys with the deal flow?
So, uh, I would say the most tedious part is the admin part, which is coming here and setting up shop. That's why we take full care of it. But once you're here, then you can access, as mentioned, the different services that we offer. For example, with grant writing, and you want to access non-dilutive funding, we fully take care of the application process. So you can be working remotely, wherever you are, and we work in the documents needed to be submitted. If you want to apply to a corporate event, we will match you with the right talent. We will match you with the right corporate, and once we
Hmm,
have identified the corporate that suits, that has a challenge that suits the product of your startup, we
right.
will connect you both and we will prepare you the pitch because we already know the corporate, we know what they are looking for. We will prepare you and we will travel with you to the headquarters of the corporate to talk with them and to present it to them. For investors, same. We will tailor your deck to the specific fund you're going to talk to because we've been talking to them a lot and we know that some investors prefer to see more about the traction, or we know that the partner of a specific fund is an expert in cybersecurity, so we know not only the fund but the right person to talk to within the fund. So I would say that the most difficult part for an Indian startup relocating is just
Hmm.
the taking the decision to move. Once you're here, I think everything is quite smooth.
Right, yeah, exactly. Taking a decision to move. Yes, that's the hard part to reach to the Lisbon, to the Lisbon. So generally, are you specifically looking at any kind of a specific startup solutions or startup industry
Absolutely.
or a deep
Uh,
tech or like you are agnostic to the any industries, anything where you
so
think,
From the fun part, I would say we are relatively agnostic as long as there is a technological component to it.
hmm,
We are very happy to see it. But I think there is a common denominator for both our fund and also our services for fundraising and and connection with corporates and bringing to Europe, which is I think we need a minimum level of traction, a minimum level of product development, that there is something tangible and something a bit more advanced than an MVP. I would say that is the minimum requirement.
so, so yeah, I mean, so the tractions I understand, but like if it's they are in a more advanced, like probably they've done the seed fundings or the first round of fundings, then that would be better, or you don't look at that.
No, of course we do. Of course we do. Absolutely. We've learned that we can never say no to meeting a founder because there's been cases where we've met extremely brilliant people, and even though they didn't have enough traction, and they were not in the right moment, they would be in the right moment 3 months later, and we would reconnect. So actually, what I told you before is the sweet spot on what we think has all the chances to succeed or the higher chances to succeed. But on our end, we check absolutely everything.
Excellent. So, I mean, basically, you are open to anybody. You never know where the opportunities
Exactly.
for.
You never know where's the next diamond.
Yeah, so with these funds, I mean, so that's a huge amount, and I think that's the one where we should be in a very attractive because compared to that one in India, the fund has increased. But the fund, what you're talking about, the three different things, and some of them is a grant and without diluting, which is always a dream for the startup founders
It's a
to have
dream.
that
Yeah.
money. Uh, Otherwise, because nobody wants to give you money, and here you're talking about that they are ready
Indeed.
to give you a grant. But that is also an encouragement to the people as well that if I have a right technologies or a solutions or something, then the money is not an issue or money is not going to be a problem, provided I have a something good coming up in that one. So that's something very, very interesting. And I think that's what I'm going to highlight in my postings when we do the reposting for this one, that the kind of
Mhm.
money is available for this one. So this money is, Louis, coming from the European unions or from the
Yeah.
Portuguese governments or from whom it is coming?
So most of it, so no, actually, practically all of it comes from the EU, from the European level, but then the EU has different ways to channel it. In fact, this is we could make a webinar about this topic, but the EU has difficulties in channeling the money correctly. In fact, the EU gives money also to each individual country, and then
Uh-huh.
each country is responsible on giving it out in a structured manner. And then countries sometimes fail to do it properly. So the way to access the money can be done both at a national level and at a supranational level. For example, this is also why it's a very important decision where you set up shop. But if you are, imagine, setting up shop in Portugal, you are going to be eligible for all the European level funding, plus the funding from the EU that is given to Portugal to channel in Portugal. Then the EU does the same thing with Spain, but then you're not going to be able to access the money that the
No,
EU gives to Spain to give out in Spain. But this is why also it's very important to decide where you set up shop.
right. Yeah. So, no, no, I understand that one because in India we are still one country, but we have a 28 states. Like you have a state,
Mhm.
27 countries, we have a 28 states in India. So it's happened the same thing that like Prime Minister Modi's or central government or federal government makes a announcement that, okay, these are the money we're going to make it available for the startups. And they made an
Mhm.
announcement that these are the monies we want to give it out, which is about a 30,000 euro, not up to your level. It's very, very small amount of money. And then the state governments or the state where we stay, they will have their own scheme as well that for the startups, we will give you certain amount of money. So I understand that and I relate very, very, I mean, it's, equally that how the European Union is our federal system, and then the individual countries, though. So both levels of the countries has their own program. So I can't go to Germany or pick up the money if I'm in Portugal. So it has to be German to German. But
Exactly.
also the another things which I liked about is the super slow and the work-life balance. Because here in India, our some of the tech founders they are giants. They are means, big companies worldwide known, but their founders are talking about that we should work 70 hours a week. Whereas at the same time in Europe,
I
they
mean,
are
it's
talking
true
about.
that in the end, I think that if you're a founder and it's your own business, you're gonna be working that many hours. I mean, I think it's a bit unavoidable and it's the hard truth. But it's true that here we've set up a culture of, hey, we also want to enjoy our lives. This being said, that's way more in Northern Europe. I wish some of my Northern Europe colleagues that are actually in the next room to me could join now and they can tell you a bit about this, which is quite fun. We've always had many debates on this topic.
And second thing is about the Germany. What you picked up is a perfect point because my son is right now in LMU University in Munich. He's
Uh-huh.
doing his, he's doing his master's in astrophysics, and
Uh-huh.
he's a Canadian citizen by birth. So he arrived and he said that you need to have that permit.
Yeah.
You apply it and you can stay. You don't need a visas or student visas or anything like that. So that's good. But when you're going to get that permit, it's almost like 8 months, still he hasn't
Yeah.
got.
I
It's
know.
very,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
confusing.
yeah. I know. I have many good friends that went to Germany, and it's the equivalent to a nightmare. It's the
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it will come.
yeah.
Whereas like in America and Canada or in the UK, if this immigration documents is late by a few weeks, people start screaming and shouting about it. Oh, wow. Right.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, any final thoughts or any final comments you would like to make, or the kind of a startup you would like to see from India?
So,
Uh,
first of all, I would like to thank you for your time, and it was great to having you here today. I would love to actually meet any startup that is interested in coming to Europe. More than happy to have a chat, a 30-minute call, learning more about them, and see how we can help. Absolutely, or even just information. I'm happy to.
I, yeah, right. Perfect. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. So
Okay,
stop recordings and then we'll.
exactly. Thank you very much for your time to all.